looking. Is the Snyder Cut trailer out yet? No?
I haven't seen it.
It's supposed to be out today.
Is it? Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so maybe it is, but I've been reading this morning and prepping.
Just looked on HBO Max. It's not under the coming soon
thing. They did drop a new movie this week I haven't watched yet. Maybe watch it this afternoon. I've been watching 30 Coins on there, which is a television series, a mini series, 8 episodes long. It's filmed in Spain, and it's a horror show. And, the 30 coins represent the 30 pieces of silver that Judas was paid to betray Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not a religious person, but, religious horror is always intriguing to me. So it's really good, though. You guys should give it a shot.
I may do that. I think The Right is probably my favorite religious-based horror film.
Is that the one with Anthony Hopkins?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so apparently the Snyder Cut trailer is out.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to watch that later and see if it's going to be worth my free money to watch it.
Well, I mean, even if it's not worth it, you're going to watch it, right?
Yeah, I'll watch
worth
it.
It's not the question.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the movie, even though every part of me is absolutely against it, I'm going to watch it. So, what about you guys? You going to watch it?
Oh, yeah. I've said since day one that I will, but I'm not watching it because I think I'll like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it if I get time. It's not a priority. Yeah. I just don't care. It's one of those things. It's like it's not on my priority list. I may see it. I may not. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. All the other reasons aside, for no other reason than I just don't care.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. As we said, though, I will watch it. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if this is Dark Side is in this movie, that is the reason I'm going to watch it. If this was like the Snyder Cut, where basically, all the characters were the same, and he was just, Dark Side's in it, that's what I want to see.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, again, like you said, if it's just a quote unquote director's cut, there's not enough interest in me to go back to that. But if it actually is a whole new movie, then it's worth the time, probably. If they said, is it going to be like an alternate universe, or they just don't give a shit? It's just, here's the movie, watch it, enjoy it, or don't.
I've not read anything about it, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Well, you guys ready to do a podcast?
Let's do a podcast.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's do the show, bitches.
Bitches.
Hey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 164 of Southern Fried Geekery. I think that's right. 164, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. As per usual, I am Craig Lance.
Matt Trogdon.
And I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I know you all are as confused as fuck right now. You are usually hearing the calming baritone voice of Caleb at this point. And to you, I just want to say, look at me. I am the captain now. Seriously, though, on occasion, for real life reasons, we need to shake things up. And this week, due to various reasons, you get to listen to me. So I would like to remind everyone that they can come interact with us on our various social media platforms. You can easily find us on Facebook by searching for Southern Fried Geekery. You have to answer like 3 questions, I think, just so we know you're not a bot and not a complete and total a-hole, and we will let you in. And you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at SFG Podcast. And if you are so inclined to send an email, we are southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. So now that the housekeeping is done, let's get down to why we are here and talk about some comics. But today is also Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to those of you celebrating. And if you don't have a Valentine's this year, we love you here at Southern Fried Geekery. And before the show, Matt was telling me he would personally be your Valentine. So just hit him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the Southern Fried Geekery Grinder account.
we have, well, that's probably about the only social media platform besides like LinkedIn that we're not a part of. So,
Oh God.
Yeah. How are you two doing this week? Caleb, I know you're exhausted.
Oh yeah, I'm on a struggle bus. That's and thank you for jumping in and like
Of course, man.
On this. This weather, this is some Canada ass weather that we're having. It's currently like 17 degrees. Folks that know me outside the podcast know that I do a lot with a nonprofit called The Van. One of the things that we do is when weather gets dangerous, we open up emergency shelters for people who live outside. So I've spent the last couple of nights doing the emergency shelters, and life doesn't stop. So that also means work during the day, school during the day, and bitch is tired. So
yeah, of course. How are you, Matt?
Well, I'm doing a lot better than that. I've been closed up in the house for a couple of days. I've had some naps.
Well, that's good. That's better than Caleb. Sometimes a nap is the best thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
So typically we like to kick off the show with our short stack of comics, where we give 3 comics we read this week and that we want to bring some attention to. So Matt, why don't you kick us off this week, bud?
Okay, so number 1 on my short stack, I read issue number 3 from IDW's The Comic Book History of Animation by Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunleavy. Are either one of you guys reading this? No?
I'm not. I guess I need to pick it up and trade, because every time you remind me of it, it's like, yeah, I need to be reading that. So
it's fascinating. And this is fascinating stuff. Just how interconnected all the early animation studios in the United States were, and people being fired or ousted for different reasons, and how that drove them to other studios. And it just led to this the array of animation that the public had at the time was mostly due to people being fired. It's just, and how what it went on to inspire why Disney films looked the way they did, why Warner Brothers Animation looked the way they did. Talks about the Fleischer Superman cartoons, how the studio wanting them to look a specific way bankrupted the animation studio.
Really?
Yeah, this is great stuff, man. I just love this stuff. One thing I do want to mention specifically, the notorious 1940s animated movie called Song of the South by the Walt Disney Pictures. That's been locked away in the vault due to just abhorrent racism. Well, a different racist movie that was worse than that actually preceded it. And it was so abhorrently racist, it was too racist for the 1940s public, and got pulled from distribution because it was too racist for 1940s America.
Wow. I don't even want to know. Yeah.
Incredible. Just absolutely incredible. And it just, this issue ends with, apparently issue number 4 is going to be all about Saturday morning cartoons, which
nice.
Those of our generation, I can only assume, have a very fond memory of. So I'm stoked about this next issue and learning about the history of Saturday morning cartoons.
I love historical documentaries, and sounds just like a documentary that's in a comic book, and I don't know why I'm not reading this book.
And it's great. If you have any passing interest in the history of comic books or history of animation, this is great stuff. I mean, Van Lente does such a great way of just putting all this together. Makes it fun to read. It's not text heavy. It's so good. And it's animated very well. I can't brag about it enough.
Nice.
The second thing on my short stack is issue number 3 from Marvel's Taskmaster. Just under the category of better than it deserves to be is this comic book. Jed McKay is the writer. Alessandro Vitti is the artist. Colorist is Guru Effects. That this is a great freaking comic. It's got great action, great pencils and art, and the writing is just knocked out of the park. I am going to look out for everything Jed McKay does from now on because this is so good.
Yeah, I was really sad because I went to go pick up issue 2 and 3. I read issue 1 and I went to get them off the wall, and 2 was sold out. So it really made me sad.
Yeah,
but I may pick it up in a trade.
He's on my radar, man. I'm looking out for this guy. And then the third thing on my short stack from IDW is issue number 4, the final issue of Judge Dredd: False Witness. Brandon Easton, arts by Sylvia Califano, colors by Eve De La Cruz. This is a great Judge Dredd story. Very short, 4-issue story. Super, super on point Judge Dredd ending. I cannot cannot recommend this series enough if you have a passing interest in Judge Dredd. This was just a great one, man. Really good.
So Matt, I was going to ask you, do you read everything that comes out by Judge Dredd, regardless of who's writing it or what the creative team is?
I'll pick it up and at least try it out. If it's good, I stay on it. If it's not, I don't. But we get so very few Judge Dredd things in the States. It's all right. It's all the UK stuff that's not really circulated here very heavily, and frankly, it's not very good usually. But this was great.
Do you good on 2000 AD, or do you get that monthly or no?
No, I'm not on 2000 AD. 2000 AD is a corporate impersonation of what it's supposed to be.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. And
I'll step down off my soapbox now.
Awesome. All good books. Caleb, what do you got, bud?
So a few things, and 2 of 3 of which came out last week. So it's all relatively new. So the first being the book that I said to look out for this past week, Black Hammer Visions by Patton Oswalt, Dean Koch, Jason Wordie, and Nate Picos. It was fun. If I'm being honest, this is not the best thing that's came out from the Black Hammer universe. I didn't dislike it. It was just kind of okay, which is fine. But this takes a look back at essentially the world that Golden Gale, or the world and life of Golden Gale. She's a young, she's basically an old woman who chain smokes and just really wants to get fucked one good time, but she's stuck in the trap of she's trapped in the body of an adolescent girl. And if you've read the Black Hammer stuff, they're stuck in this kind of very middle America town, and so most of the book is about her just being there and them trying to pass as a normal family, and how she's just not having it. She's it's beneath her. She's doesn't like being infantilized, and she, like I said, she's a chain smoking old woman who just wants to have a good lay, and she's got to deal with all this bullshit. And the passage of time too, which doesn't change for her, but other people notice. It's fun. Patton Oswalt writes, he's written comics before. He's not a professional comics writer, though. There were some things with the flow of the book that kind of like rocked it, and I don't know if those things were were done purposely just to make you feel like, okay, it throws you off a little bit because something's not right here, or if it was just pacing issues. I can't really say. I'll pontificate on it more as the weeks go by and figure it out. But as of right now, it's just kind of it's all right. From Boom Studios, Origins number 4. Dude, I love this book. This book, it came out of nowhere for me. I didn't expect it to be anything that I would really follow through, but I continually just look forward to it and move it to the front of my stack. It's the world has ended, the machines have risen, so to speak. Both nature and AI fought back against humanity together, but one AI has brought humanity back, or at least in the form of one person, and he's trying to make his way in the world where everything's a threat to him. The art in this is gorgeous. I forget the individual's first name, but Rebecla is his last name, and it's a painted style. Honestly, I think if you like Dustin Nguyen's work, it's not a 1-to-1 analog to that, but there's a little bit of Dustin Nguyen in there. especially in the way he draws robots. It's cool stuff. And then my third book is last but certainly not least, is not a comic at all. It's actually a book that we spoke to the author about on the show not too long ago. But it's Mysterious Travelers by Zach Crucy. I got my hardcover copy in that I ordered a while back. It's gorgeous. It's going to look great on the shelf. And sometimes the stuff on the inside is just as gorgeously written as the art on the outside that dons the cover. It kind of speaks for itself. You all heard Zach. If you haven't, go back and check that episode out. But literally, the man is a doctor of comics. He's got his doctorate degree in comics and history, and just lays out a really, really, really compelling argument, pushing back against some of the notions that Steve Ditko was just a complete objectivist, that he had bought in and was a wholesale acolyte of like Ayn Randianism. And Zach walks through his works to kind of argue and say, hey, like, yes, he did believe in objectivism, and he was a big donor to the Ayn Randian notions of things, but he also was still trying, like, that was just the thing that that was all he had that shot up, but he was looking for something different. He wasn't necessarily a complete and total acolyte of that. And he walks through some of his comics, and it's like, these are some of the themes that he was exploring, and looking for a different type of liberal identity and big L liberalism, as far as Western culture goes. It's fascinating. I'm a nerd, so I really, really enjoy this type of this level of intellectualism brought to comics, and Zach Crucy's a master at it. So order the book if you haven't already. Rumor has it that the first printing is sold out or almost sold out, so get your copy, and go listen to that episode because it was fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a copy of that book for sure.
Dude, as much as Ditko, you gotta.
Exactly. So my three books, my first one is Casual Flings, #1 by AWA Upshot, Jason Starr, Dalibor Talika, I think is how you say the name, and Marco Lesko. This is the story of a married lawyer who just needs a break from life. When she meets up with a client at a bar, one thing leads to another. Little does she know that he videotaped the whole thing. If it were just that story, it probably wouldn't intrigue me, but it's AWA, so I know that it's going to have some sort of great twist to it. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. Marvel Comics Daredevil #27, Chip Zdarsky and Mark Cicchetto. They continue to tell this very compelling story, even while dealing with the major crossover event that is King in Black, that I wish would just kind of get out of the rest of the Marvel comics at this point.
I second that.
Preach.
I do like that they're doing a crossover event that is affecting everything, but I don't need, 5 or 6, every issue of every ongoing to have it in there. So, lastly, Darth Vader #10, also by Marvel Comics, Greg Pak and Raphael Ienco, just continue to bring the heat in this story. Vader is just about to Exegol and has decided pretty much fuck the rules the Emperor gave him, that the Force is his ally and he's going to use it. And we are getting ready to see the events that lead up to Rise of Skywalker, or at least how far back the Emperor planned on those events. So, anyways, the next part of the show is where we kind of sit down and we have our family meal, so to speak. We call it our Roundtable. And this week we're going to talk about Radiant Black #1 from Image Comics. Matt's going to break it down for us here in just a second. But before we do that, kind of get your guys' opinions on this book.
Caleb?
Caleb?
Yeah, I'll go first. It was fun. I like it. It's so I'm trying to think of how I
Uh-huh.
it's
Yeah.
kind of it's lukewarm. I'm lukewarm on it. It's not by no means is it bad. By no means do I think this is going to make it to my end of the year best of list. But it was a good story. It's a fun origin story for reasons that I'll get into later.
Yeah.
I feel like Kyle Higgins is typecasting himself.
Very possibly. Matt, what did you think?
I thought it was altogether fine. I mean, it was a well-crafted origin story. Obviously, he's in a hurry to get the origin over with. He did so much in this first issue. But yeah, I mean, I can't find anything wrong with it. Sure.
I think that is three of us with fine as our answer.
Yeah.
I think we're all all three of us are very much like, it was okay. I will see what issue 2 does. So, all right, Matt, you want to break it down for us, bud?
Well, this isn't going to take long at all because this is a very straightforward and very simple origin story. This is not a complicated story. It is the story of young Nathan. I mean, he looks like he's a white guy. Looks like he's in his mid-20s, and he has recently come to the realization that he is a starving artist, you would say. He's a writer, and he is not successful. So he has reached the level of debt to where he has moved back home, moved back in with his parents in Lockport, Illinois. And upon moving in, one of his old buddies shows up to welcome him home, take him out to get turned up, as the kids would say. And so they go out and they're drinking, talking about, his failures. And then this orb shows up as they're leaving the bar. This floating orb, he touches said orb and gets himself a sweet looking suit that, if you're familiar with the Power Rangers, looks along those lines. And then he, does some super powered stuff, like makes a train stop and float and makes some cars float. And then he and his buddy fly away. Then he discusses what wearing this thing is like, throws up. I thought that was pretty funny. And that's pretty much it. He's now got this super powered suit on, and things are going to be different for him. Things are looking up, Jack.
Things are looking up.
And the last final page, spoilers, is apparently somebody else got themselves a sweet orb, and they decided to rob a bank. So I'm expecting these two people will come together.
I'm expecting there will be some fighting between Power Ranger Black and Red Power Ranger here before long. It very much had a Power Ranger feel to me. I will say that that first page where it shows his bank account and his credit card debt really hit home. Kind of felt that one in my soul. But it's as you said, it's a very it's an origin story. It is what it is. It gets you set up so that in the next episode we can see some a superhero learning how to use his powers. And what we don't know is how long the Red Power Ranger has had his powers and how apt he is with his abilities yet. So I have to think his friend is probably a little bit jealous of him because they both had a chance to touch the orb, and Nathan took the chance. So we'll see if that plays into it at all. Overall, I enjoyed the story. I thought the art was good. Like I said, I'll be on the second issue just to see where it goes.
So here's where I made the comment about, I think Kyle Higgins is typecasting himself, and I'll stand by that. But it's so you mentioned the Power Rangers. Kyle Higgins actually writes the Power Rangers, and he's written that before. And this has a very Power Rangers like origin. Kyle Higgins is also writing the Rise of Ultraman right now for Marvel, where very very similar origin. It has that very Japanese fighting Saturday morning sitcom type feel, where a person, regard in the other two things I spoke about, there's usually a team dynamic, with even an Ultraman where the science department, but but it's all very similar threads, like it's very similar features, and it felt like something that I've read from him before. Like I don't think there's, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think he's really flexing his creative muscles with it. Like I feel like this is a comfortable story for him to tell, and unless something happens in issue 2 that completely flips on its head, it's going to be more of the same from him that I've read, which I don't know is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's comics history is full of writers who they jump from title to title, but essentially kind of work with the same tropes and within the same margins, but.
Ed Brubaker.
And that's a good example of somebody who does it really, really well and amazingly well. But frankly, and I don't know if maybe this is just because of the type of stories that I'm getting more and more interested in, or because I just want to see something. I kind of want to see Higgins flex a little bit. I was way more interested in the story he was telling at the beginning, when he was talking about, hey, this guy who got his, he the starving artist aspect, he got his degree, and there's some type of, at least for me, who's an English major, there's an eye rolling aspect of, oh, your degree is in writing, and you thought you were going to do something, and now you're going to move back in with your parents. But I wasn't annoyed by the way that Higgins did that, because I thought he was telling a very emotional, nuanced and compelling version of that story, and then it got interrupted by an orb and
well, it could very well be that you didn't feel any of those emotions to it, because the annoyance to it, because I'm sure Higgins probably is very much a probably has that same degree and knows what from where he's coming.
Yeah, no, I think he absolutely knows. Like he understands that kind of financial pain, as I think a lot of people who are in kind of my age range do. I'm 33. There's a lot of us who took out a lot of student loans. There's a lot of us who did find value in a liberal arts degree, and still do find value in a liberal arts degree, even though that's not necessarily the most conducive to having a fat ass bank account. But there's still value there, and there's a lot of folks in the world who don't see that value, and they like to mock it. But I do think that he's telling the flip side of that coin, that like, look, here's there is worth in this, even if it comes with a heavy price, and people just have to figure out how to do it. I was way more interested in that is kind of this compelling narrative to this dude's life than I am in another here's my symbol, awesome power, kung fu superhero story, because I've read that from Kyle Higgins.
That's his favorite. That's his favorite sandbox to play in. I mean, I think he should write the story he wants to.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it felt very, very familiar.
Well, it is, because I mean, when this was solicited, I mentioned in this last week. I mean, it was solicited as, this is him capitalizing on his success and love for the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you shouldn't expect anything but that. That's exactly what it is. And I think he should write whatever he wants. I mean, if did you read the back matter in this issue?
No, I didn't get to it yet.
Craig?
I did not, no.
Oh yeah, he goes, the back matter is all about nothing but his lifelong fascination with the Power Rangers. And it's his favorite thing in pop culture. Mm-hmm. He stayed on it. It became popular when he was very young, and he stayed on it. He talks about staying on it after all his friends dropped off and, quote, outgrew it. He tells a story about him and his friends were playing backyard football, and he remembered that he forgot to set the VCR to record Power Rangers. So we told him he had to go to the bathroom right in the house to set the VCR. So yeah, I mean, Power Rangers are his lifelong pop culture favorite. And, now he's going to write his own take on it. His creator around the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like he's getting a chance to take something that he loved and put his own twist on it, as opposed to having to play like he has been with other people's intellectual properties, with both Ultraman and Power Rangers. Now, having said that, his current Power Rangers run is getting some amazing accolades from people all over the industry.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not reading it, but I've heard nothing but good about it. So maybe it is just him wanting to put his own spin on that, and there's nothing to say that just because this guy now has these powers that he's not still going to be dealing with all of those issues that were compelling to you.
Oh no, I think he absolutely will. That and Matt's right. The man should write whatever he wants to write. And I wasn't meaning to come off as saying that he needs to write, do anything for any other reason. That's, as an artist, that's his prerogative. I was just saying, as far as like what I've, my history with his work and what I was reading, I found one to be much more interesting because it was new. And Matt brought up Ed Brubaker, and Ed Brubaker does play in the same genre, and he plays with largely the same types of characters. But in each Ed Brubaker story, there's something different. And I think in this case, the something different is this kind of Gen X / millennial financial struggle that he's going to bring to it that he maybe hasn't brought to Ultraman or brought to Power Rangers. And like Matt also said, this was let me push through and get this origin out of the way so I can get to the story. So I think there's going to be some really cool stuff in issue 2. And I'm going to pick up issue 2 just to see what he's doing there. But I don't want to read the same. I don't want to at the same time read basically the same story that I'm reading in Ultraman. I think that's what I was saying. He hasn't done that yet. But again, for my taste.
I'm not reading Ultraman, but I will be sticking on this one. So for me, it will be a new take. And, I also think the difference here versus like the Power Rangers is you have an adult that has the power, where the teenagers in Power Rangers, it tends to be teenagers or young adults.
Right.
This is a guy at least in his mid to late 20s, I would assume. So, I think there's definitely some variance from the Power Rangers to this story, even though the graphic design is a bit Power Ranger-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And, we haven't seen a Megazord yet, so.
What is that?
I don't know. Isn't that what they call the giant monsters the Power Rangers fight?
Oh, the Megazord. Yeah. So in the Power Rangers, each Power Ranger has a mech. So like they have in the Mighty Morphin, which is what most Americans know it as, they're all basically dinosaurs of some sort. And all of those dinosaurs kind of combined together. Easiest way to put it, Matt, do you remember the Transformers? Do you remember the combined versions of the Transformers? All the Transformers you could buy them separately, but if you bought the right 5, they all link together to make one giant, bigger robot.
That sounds like a ripoff of Voltron.
Well,
I remember Voltron.
It was.
It's all different, but even with that, it's still cool. So,
Voltron.
Anything else you guys want to add to our roundtable?
His mama has to be the sweetest little person.
She's pretty kind. The father kind of starts to give him shit, and she's like, "No, shut up. No, my baby's home." That's all that mattered to her, was her baby was home. Didn't matter that he was, failing at life. All that mattered was her baby was home.
As a side note, looking at the power set of this guy, I kind of like to see Kyle Higgins someday branch over and write a Green Lantern story, because there's some of the way that the power of this orb thing manifests. It's very Green Lantern-ish, as far as the way he can point it and make the train stop and float and stuff like that. It evoked the idea of Green Lantern and that power set in my brain. So I'd love it if he walked over and did a Lantern story for DC one day. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, as good as the Grant Morrison Green Lantern started off, I would be really happy to see somebody else on Green Lantern. The whole concept of it being like a mini black hole is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is able to control the powers with just his thoughts is, as you said, very reminiscent of Green Lantern's powers. So, where it's based on will. All right. Well, we're ready to move on to our books of the week.
Yep.
All right. Caleb, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick us off. So
Okay.
today is Valentine's Day, as you mentioned, and y'all know how I love love. Uh, it's one of my favorite things. There's also some stuff going around in the zeitgeist of pop culture that has got all the nerds aflutter, if you will. And so that made me want to go back and read, some old iterations of this, something, some nods that's being had in the TV show. And the TV show that I'm talking about, it's not hard to figure out, is WandaVision. It's, Craig and I know have been watching it. Matt, I think, is going to binge watch it at some point later on in life. But it's a great show. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm intrigued by it. My only complaint is that for some reason they give us 10 minutes worth of credits each episode, and they make me think I'm going to miss something at the end of it.
It's the weirdest thing, right?
Yeah, that's strange. But other than that, the show is fantastic. In my hierarchy of Marvel characters, Scarlet Witch is my second or third favorite character. So I love seeing it brought to life. And I love seeing the nods to the past, to what they've done with this character before. So I went back, way back to 1982, and I read the Vision and the Scarlet Witch #1 of 4. And this was a mini series that Marvel did, that you can find it in dollar bins all over the damn place. No, like it's not worth any money. It's just it's just fun to read if you want to go back. It's written by the great Bill Mantlo. If that name doesn't ring a bell, pull up a desk because you need to go to school. And it's drawn by Rick Leonardi with a cover by Rick Leonardi. Again, as I said, this was 1982, so it's dated as you read it now. It feels like a very 1982 comic, but essentially where this picks up at is Vision and the Scarlet Witch have decided to go on a leave of absence from the Avengers, to go on a hiatus. They've bought a home together in a little kind of suburban neighborhood, and they're going to try to to live life. They're going to see what they can do as far as being a couple, because it's new. And at the time this was being written, we've seen Vision for a long time, we've seen Scarlet Witch, but their relationship, outside of the whack bang boom of the Avengers, had not necessarily really been explored to the extent that they get into with this series with Bill Mantlo. So and so where I say that there are some nods, this story, it's kind of spoilerish to the show, but not really if you've seen the trailers. But the story opens up Halloween time in this suburban neighborhood, and Wanda and Vision are walking down the street, and there's all of these kids doing their trick-or-treater thing, going in costumes from door to door. And they say, they see Wanda and Vision walking down the street, and they say, "Hey, I thought this holiday was just for kids. Look at those adults doing this." But hey, don't they look familiar? And so this little trio of children get a little bit closer. And where I say that's a nod to the show, there's this great episode actually that just aired, but that they had used as part of the promo for the show forever, showing Wanda and Vision in that same scenario, walking down the street, Halloween time. And so this is a really great nod to Mantlo and Leonardi that they did, that they threw back to. So this trio of kids who kind of picked up on, hey, those aren't adults in Halloween costumes. Those are two of the Avengers. That's Vision and Scarlet Witch. What are they doing in our neighborhood? Let's go find out. So they go and they look around. They're peeking through the hedges and all that. While they're doing that, Wanda and Vision are unpacking. They've just moved into this new home. Our old buddy Jarvis came to visit them because he's, they're still Avengers. He's still a friend. He's dear to them. He's very much the father figure to almost every one of these characters at this time. And frankly, as somebody who loves Jarvis, who, as this comic and so many other comics kind of brought him to the page, I miss him. I miss Jarvis being a thing. I don't like this new version of the Avengers where Jarvis is a robot, where they kind of take the MCU movie version of it and have written him out as being the helper.
You could have just stopped it. You don't like the new version of the Avengers. That would have been fine.
Well, I could, but that's not necessarily. I like Jonathan Hickman's version, and they kind of do that same thing in there. You're right. I mean, I'm not very happy with what's happening in Jason Aaron's version, but Jason Aaron was not the first writer to play in this world where Jarvis isn't there. Long story short, it was just great to see Jarvis. It was great to see him come back to the page and continue to not only be the person who is the caretaker for the Avengers, but who is a friend, who is fearless, who puts himself in harm's way for these people, even though he has no power. It just really it plays up to what made that side character so great. And this book does a lot of that because it walks you through the history of the Vision, where he comes from, how he got made. Does the same thing with Wanda. It kind of gives you a full history, a full and robust history of both of those characters, but without taking up 5 pages to do it. It's all in 1 or 2 pages. And so where the story kind of goes after that, there's a tome that's been given to Wanda by Jarvis. Tony Stark picked it up while he was, Iron Manning around Europe somewhere, and it's very much tied into the old magics of the Roma, which Scarlet with Wanda stems from, especially at this point in time. So it was a housewarming gift that he gives them. But this book is a mystery, and something comes of it as she sits it next to the fire to go enjoy some coupley and canoodly time with Vision. The pages start flipping open, and something shoots out of it. And this is a spirit, and what this spirit does, this little ball of energy goes and it finds those kids who are hiding in the bushes, and it morphs them. It takes their Halloween costumes of a ghost and a jack-o'-lantern, and another figure, a scarecrow or something like that, and it turns them into like this really, supposed to be scary, more live versions of themselves. But the reason that this happens, the figure who has caused this is, and this is where Matt's going to reach through the internet and slap me because I'm going to mispronounce it, because right now I'm too fucking tired to remember how you actually pronounce it. But it's Samhain. Did I say that right, Matt?
I mean,
You said the American version or the angelicized version.
Yeah, the Celtic pronunciation is Samhain. God, that's nerdy. I'll shut up now.
Nope. Hey, that's what we come to this point for. That's the nuance that we need. So Samhain is he's this ancient druid, Celtic druid who, his powers got stripped. He's kind of a borderline godlike figure in this version of the comic, and he's trying to escape and reestablish himself and take over the world, as villainy type figures will do. And Wanda and Vision got to stop him, and they jump to work at that. Where this goes on through the other series, again, you can go check these out. Some figures from their past come in, and at the end of the story, and this is something that really goes to shape the future of Wanda, somebody knocks on her door and she sees a person there that's kind of this, mid-60s chubby white dude, balding hair, yada yada yada, and he's like, and she's kind of taken aback, and he's like, is this any way to treat to welcome your father? Which to this point, if my history is correct, we'd always thought that Magneto was Wanda's father, and this is very much not Magneto. So it introduced that twist to some sense. So I love it. But you can get the first issue for $1.99 on Comixology. You can find these things in dollar bins all damn day long at your LCS. Yes, it's dated. Yes, it no longer fits into the canon that we know of Marvel today, but it's so much fun. It's really cool. Leonardi, some of his panels, when he really is trying to focus, he's got kind of a Wally Wood vibe, and I dig the hell out of Wally Wood. So it's just cool. It's fun old comics to read. So go check it out.
Yeah, and I know they have it collected in trade paperbacks as well. So if you're looking for a trade paperback, you can pick that up just as easily. Yeah. I've actually never read this series. Have you, Matt?
Oh no, I've seen it many times. It passed me by.
I'm not surprised that Matt skipped out on that book for some reason, but
I'm not going to say it's not the gold standard of comic books by any means, or superhero comics, but if you love these characters, and if you want to go back and see just how hard the showrunners are pulling from like actual comics.
I was going to say, it sounds like that they're at least, I mean, they've got a different thing going on in this story, but it feels like they're, from what you described, that they're pulling scenarios from that series, which is cool.
Yeah. And they did the same thing with the subsequent 12 issue series that came after that.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, there's so much that the people who made the television show that you can watch on Disney Plus took the time and they went back and did their homework, and there's some really cool nods, and you see those Easter eggs when you read this book. Plus, it's those characters. It's that classic version of those characters that made tons of people fall in love with them, and years later, inspired Kurt Busiek to write the characters the way that he did, which made me fall in love with the Avengers. So that for little Caleb, this is like comic book ancestry to the thing that made me a comic fan. So it was just it's neat to go revisit it.
Awesome. I probably need to at some point. So yeah, I guess I'll jump in and go next. The book I'm going to talk about is a little independent book written by Van Jensen and drawn and lettered by Dusty Higgins. I am personally lucky enough to be able to call both of those guys friends. Dusty is from Little Rock, and we see him quite often at shows around here. And also, if you happen to like our logo, Dusty is the one that took Sean's concept art and drew the digital version for us. So the book I'm going to talk about is Pinocchio, the Vampire Slayer. And as you might tell, this is a retelling of Pinocchio with a twist. It is published by SLG Publishing. The book starts with Master Cherry finding a talking piece of wood, and the wood asks Master Cherry to please not turn him into a table leg. So Cherry decides that the wood would be better served being made into a puppet. So he fights with his nemesis Geppetto, but ultimately gives him the piece of wood, and Geppetto then in turn creates a puppet that becomes Pinocchio. Pinocchio, shortly after being made, meets a talking cricket, and he immediately crushes it and kills it. So as you can tell, this is not your Disney version of Pinocchio. Some time passes and a vampire enters into their little villa. And when the vampire attacks a boy, he goes to bite down on his neck, but it's not flesh, it's wood. And of course is Pinocchio. Pinocchio says he is a real boy, which causes his nose to grow since he's lying, and that the vampire is his prey. He then snaps off his nose and kills the vampire with the stake. So yes, he lies to get his wooden stakes to kill the vampires, which is absolutely amazing. Because like sometimes he'll be thinking he's telling the truth, like he's fighting some vampires later and there's an entire swarm around him. And he's like, I'm not scared of you guys, and his nose will grow. Or he'll be like, I can handle this. These odds don't scare me. And his nose will grow. And then at one point he says, I'm going to get out of this alive. And his nose grows and he kind of goes, oh crap. So he then returns to Master Cherry's house, and we find out that the vampires have killed Geppetto, and Pinocchio has made it his life mission to hunt them down using his wooden nose as stakes. That night, while lying in bed, Pinocchio sees a bug crawling on the wall, and after crushing it with his boot, he has realized that he has once again smashed the talking cricket. However, the cricket can no longer die because now he is a ghost cricket. So he tells Ghost Cricket his backstory and how he lied to a vampire and his nose pierced the vampire's heart, killing it, but that he being the vampire, had already killed Geppetto. So he went on to start hunting vampires. He keeps trying to warn the town of the vampires, but they won't listen to him. They call him the little boy that cried monster. They don't believe him because when he kills the vampires, they conveniently turn to dust. So eventually the vampires capture one of Pinocchio's friends, and when he tries to save her, he is captured and hung. They don't really describe how hanging would affect a wooden puppet, but either way, he is saved by Master Cherry. Cherry and Pinocchio hunt the vampires to the crypts in the cemetery, where they learn that Geppetto is the new master of vampires. Geppetto kills Cherry, and when Pinocchio tells Geppetto that Geppetto isn't his father, his nose grows and pierces Geppetto, killing him. As Geppetto dies, he tells Pinocchio to keep hunting the vampires, that they will keep coming. So, this book is a lot of fun, as you can tell by the whole lying to get his nose to grow so he can use the wood for stakes. There is a reason why his particular wood is deadly to vampires, other than just piercing their heart, which, I'll save for you to read. There's a lot of really funny moments in this. It's masterfully told, and there is absolutely no reason why Dusty is not drawing more mainstream comics, because he is fantastic, especially at this black and white level of drawing and illustrating. I talked to Dusty this morning, and he said that you can get these books. There's 4 volumes of them. Each one takes you maybe a half hour to read. And you can pick them up at, maybe not on the shelf, but you can order them at any local bookstore. I'm going to tell you, I had a whole lot of fun going back and rereading volume 1 for this show to get reacquainted with it this morning. Just absolutely was laugh out loud funny at times, and also has this kind of dark nature, as vampire stories tend to do. So that is the book I recommend you go find and read. So have you read it, Caleb?
Yep.
Yeah.
The book is basically a breath of fresh air.
It's just really funny. It's cute, it's funny, it's fun, it's like I said, drawn well. It's just worth it to have on your shelf. And if you can't find it, hit me up. I'll let you borrow mine, because you need to read it. So
am I wrong? Does Van Jansen have some Arkansas ties?
Yeah, he actually lived here for a while. He lives in Georgia now.
Okay. That's what I thought.
He lived in Arkansas for quite a while, which is how him and Dusty got to work on. They actually worked on the Pinocchio, and then they did a King Arthur book as well, which was like the Undead Knights of the Round Table or something like that.
I picked up
which was also good, but
I picked up Van Jansen's miniseries, The $6 Million Man.
Mm-hmm.
Much better than it deserved to be. Much better than it deserved to be.
Yep, Van's a heck of a writer for sure.
His Flash was really good. When he read I don't read a lot of Flash, but that was on
his Green Lantern was good too.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been pretty solid. For when Obama was in the president, he actually created a new cabinet member, and Van Jansen was in that cabinet. He was the ambassador of comic books to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So of course that position is now gone, but it would be nice to see it returned.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll write Barry a letter.
Right.
Hey, talk to you, boy.
Right. So Matt, what do you got for us this week, bud?
Well, the one book I'm going to talk about is one that we actually had just talked about doing as a roundtable last week. Graphic fantasy. I actually got my hands on a copy of this. We abandoned it because we couldn't find it. It's $10 book, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I got a copy of it. This is hey.
Now that he's got a copy, Caleb, it's all good that we review it.
Well, yes. So I wanted to talk about this book because this is a reprint of a 1982 fanzine that is all but impossible to find in the wild, apparently. So Image reprinted this. I mean, it is pricey for reasons I cannot explain. I don't know why this is a $10 book. I guess, supply and demand is the only explanation for that. So anyway, I was just really, really curious about this. This is, notoriously the first appearance of Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. Before he was known as such, he was just known as the Dragon. Specifically, his name is Paul Dragon. And this is a black and white reprint of the original black and white fanzine. 3 different creators. There's 4 different stories. One literally appears to be somebody's child made their own comic book and they crammed it in here. That's what this appears to be. Anyhow, it's interesting to go back and look at this because this is a 20-year-old Eric Larson, and seeing how his work has evolved. It's interesting to me to see what his work looked like as a 20-year-old, and then what it would go on to be when he got the mainstream Marvel work that he did, and his popularity skyrocketed, specifically when it came to when he took over the Spider-Man title. So it's good to look at this just to see kind of where people's foundations lay, and how there's lots of problems with the artwork in here, frankly, because he's a young, inexperienced artist, but he stuck with it and became a master at storytelling. And I also have a appreciation of fanzines. This is something that's pretty much gone the way of the dodo. Now everything's fan fiction that people post on the internet, but before the internet, fanzines were a regular thing and really popular. And this doesn't really come across as a fanzine, though. I have to say, a fanzine historically has been, somebody will do a Lord of the Rings fanzine, and it's people publishing their thoughts and observances on that piece of work with fan fiction stories crammed in there. There's a notorious, along those lines, some really interesting things have come out of fanzines over the years. Most of it obviously is garbage that you throw away, but there's some gems sprinkled here and there. The most notorious comes from a sword and sorcery fanzine out of Missouri in the 70s, very early 70s. There's a story called The Eye of Argon. Have either one of you guys heard of this?
I
have not. Yeah.
So do yourself a favor and Google The Eye of Argon. This is a notorious piece of fan fiction that is so bad. People would have parties and they would have Eye of Argon challenges. And the challenge is everybody gets in a circle. Somebody pulls up the Eye of Argon and you read it as long as you can without laughing. And the winner is the guy or girl that can read the longest without bursting out into laughter, because it is horrible. I mean,
could you imagine being the author of that? And that's what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, yeah, and I've read some of it, and it is laugh out loud bad. It is straight up Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie bad. And it's all the worst tropes of the sword and sorcery genre written in the worst possible way. I would love to do an Eye of Argon challenge. This would be amazing. But in the world of COVID, I mean, you could possibly do one via Zoom.
I was going to say, it sounds like our next Chaos episode.
Oh, man. That honestly would be amazing, because I've read some of it. It is so bad. I mean, I was doubled over laughing reading this thing. And years ago when I heard about this.
what we can do for our next Chaos episode is we can do exactly that. And one starts reading till he starts laughing, and then it goes on to the next person. And we'll just see how far we can actually get into the story.
That is not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. I mean, it's
Caleb hates it already.
It's glorious, and it's glorious, and it just inaccuracy, or excuse me, not inaccuracies, just bad quality. It's just straight up terrible stuff. That is, yeah, I can't oversell it. So that's why, I have this affection for fanzines, and I love going back and seeing all that old stuff, and a lot of it with any given, and a lot of it had to do with like subversive text, subversive subject matter. So like pro wrestling had a lot of fanzines, sword and sorcery, science fiction, all this stuff that really wasn't embraced by mainstream culture until the past few years had fanzines, because no major publication was going to put a regular magazine out about these things to any real degree. So it was fan created. And I just have that stuff's somewhat fascinating to me, to see what people are just completely driven. They're only driven by their love of the genre. They're not doing it to make money. It costs money to do these things. And what they can come up with, in doing that is really interesting to me. Even when it's really bad, it's still interesting. It's like, oh my God, your enthusiasm for this material is not reflecting in your craft, but you can still laugh at it and appreciate it. At least I can.
Well, it begs the question how, Savage Dragon made it into a fanfic magazine.
Do what now?
It kind of begs the question on how a creator-owned character like Savage Dragon, even though it's, the first appearance or whatever, made it into a fanzine. I guess he was just playing with the genre.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. I mean, this was Eric Larson, as we all know, is literally a lifelong comic book fan. So he wanted to make his own comic book. And him and a few buddies got together and made their own comic book and made it a 3-parter, and put it together. I mean, this was his first opportunity to put pencil to paper to kind of bring his character to life.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. It's but the other creators in this, there's these other stories, they didn't go on to have comic book careers. They didn't go on to have any kind of artistic career that I could find. I researched online and couldn't find them. Couldn't find them sourced any other place than this original graphic fantasy publication. And based on the material, probably a good decision.
You were talking about Eric Larson being a lifelong comics fan. That dude has a collection of Jack Kirby originals that is stupid.
He's well, and in looking at this, I mean, there are so many Jack Kirby panels in this. His love for Jack Kirby is all over this, and it's all over everything he's ever done, frankly. But it is big time right off of this. I mean, you can pick out, that's a Captain America pose. That's, there's a lot of Captain America panels in this early Savage Dragon work, no doubt about it. And it's all Marvel. I mean, it screams of the Marvel style of comic books. This, from front to back, this thing it's Marvel front to back.
And can you tell it's Eric Larson at that point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's his layouts didn't change much. What changed is he just got better at anatomy.
Gotcha.
Versus this, he got much better at anatomy and cinematography. He just got better at it.
So did he have a section at the end of it where he told other creators how bad they were doing? And how they could be better?
Yeah. At this time, he had no foundation to stand on for that. So
gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just curious.
Yeah. He spends a lot of time criticizing John Byrne's work in the back of this. Yeah. Sure.
So I'm going to ask you guys to speculate for a minute. What do you guys think led to the demise of the fanzine? Like, I mean, I've got my theories, but
that's the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say mostly it's the internet, and people can put their thoughts out and create their own blogs everywhere now. It's the same thing that's pretty much killed all magazines at this point.
Yeah. That was, I was going to say the birth of the internet, but also I think that coupled with the fact that certain entities tried to monetize it and make it mainstream, like Wizard magazine, they tried to take a fanzine concept and make it mainstream, which kind of makes it not cool. I think that also diminished, had a diminishing return for it, but I mean, definitely the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I think when people have the ability to put their thoughts out there for everybody to read anyways, I think it takes away the need of it. But just a really cool concept though.
The people who would have made them just decided to make podcasts instead.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel it.
Yep.
I feel attacked. All right. So you guys know what happens next, right? We talk about the books that are coming out next week, and it's time for our what's on the menu, or we tell you a book that you might want to pick up, that we're going to pick up, or at least are considering picking up. And we can't guarantee they're going to be good, but we can guarantee they will be available. So, Caleb, what's your book for this coming week?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to pick me to go first.
Okay, well, we can go with Matt first if you like.
No, I'll go first. I mean, I may steal his book, and that's the reason.
He'll be all right.
So there's a little book that we all love, that we know, that we appreciate, that we have all lauded more than we can count on fingers and toes, but that's the Immortal Hulk. Last year, I think, is when it really started, but there's this trend of putting out Immortal Hulk one-shots by different and varying artists who dabble in the kind of world that Al Ewing and Joe Bennett, if we haven't completely just stopped saying his name, created. And this one is no different. And it's from a creator that we all, I think, on this show dearly love, and that's Mr. Declan Shalvey. He's drawing the Immortal Hulk Flatline #1. It is a one-shot. Every morning, Bruce Banner wakes up in a new place. The Hulk is trying to tell him something, but Bruce has had enough of his green-veined alters. When a new gamma-powered villain shows up in a small New Mexico town, Bruce has to confront the source of his anger, and it's not what you'd expect. So I'm always down to see Declan, and I've already talked about Scarlet Witch being on my hierarchy of characters. Y'all know me. The top of that list is Hulk Bruce Banner. That's my dude. So you give me Declan drawing my dude, I'm going to be a happy camper.
All righty. I'm sure all three of us will be picking that one up.
Yep.
Matt, what's your book, buddy?
Man, the one I'm going to mention, I don't know what to think about this. I'm going to pick this up, but man, I guess you would say I'm torn, mixed emotions and whatnot. From Marvel X-Men Legends #1. This is by Fabian Nicieza, probably saying that wrong, and Brett Booth. Break out the yellows and blues and fire up the danger room and snap on your pouches, it says. So this is, I mean, dude, this is 90s freaking, I mean, the deep end of the pool of the 1990s. So I am going to check this out of curiosity more than anything.
Yeah.
But cool, boy, I have a feeling I'm going to get some flashbacks in the atmosphere of this work.
Matt will be sitting in the corner rocking back and forth and PTSD from 90s comics.
Blast, pull out my old Metallica and Slayer out, CDs. Pop those in the player. Oh man, it's skipping. Fuck.
I gotta say, Brett Booth looked really good on he did an issue of X-Men, 2 weeks ago? And it looked good. So
Brett Booth, I like Brett Booth's work. Aesthetically looks great, but it is 90s to the hilt, man.
It's got its markers. That's for sure.
So you were talking about, putting on your CDs. I just watched Jason X the other day.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, because for my other podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So
That makes sense.
The
4.
they're going back to Earth 1 to find things to, that they can take to Earth 2 and sell, like relics. And one of the biggest things they can find to take back are old boxes of DVDs. Anyways, I have a question. Is Vault on our shit list, or are they still a good publisher?
I love Vault.
Okay.
I thought Vault was
I couldn't
legit.
remember the one that went off the rails about a year ago. But anyways, the book I'm going to pick is Hollow Heart #1 by Paul Allure and Paul Tucker. Again, by Vault Comics. L used to be a human. Now he's a jumble of organs in a biosuit. L also is in tremendous pain and has been for a very long time. Hope arrives in the form of Mateo, a mechanist. I guess that's how you say it. Mechanist? Whatever. Brought in to work on L's suit. So, seems like an interesting concept, science fiction, futuristic type thing. So that's our 3 books that we recommend. And in what is maybe the shortest episode of Southern Fried Geekery ever. So
It's what happened.
Hey, Craig, I know you were kind of running the show earlier. Are you going to leave the part in where earlier in the show you said that the Justice League Snyder Cut was going to sweep the Oscars?
Caleb's doing the editing, so he'll have to answer that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
bold prediction,
not.
but
Yeah,
I don't think I agree.
Look, I mean,
Yeah.
after Craig just revealed that he just ignored the 2 Vault books that was on my best of lists in this past year.
No, every time you say Vault is one of your favorites, Caleb, I have to think if it's one of them that was on our shit list for some reason. Then I realize no, Caleb wouldn't be saying it's one of his favorites if it's not. So I always get it mixed up with, and I don't even remember the name of the other one. So
I think the one you're talking about is Alterna.
Yeah, Alterna. That's
Peter
right.
Cinetti decided he really wanted those comic $8 for a little. So, but that's not.
So sounds like we're gonna wrap up with our shortest episode. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I talk quicker than Caleb. I'm not sure. You guys have anything else you want to add?
Stay warm.
I just stay warm. It's stupid cold.
Yeah.
Well, if
we're in Arkansas, if we're going to live in the South and have to deal with some Canada ass weather, I want some Canada ass healthcare to go with it.
Right.
Canada ass.
Somebody said Wisconsin was at -23 the other day.
Yeah, I was talking to Arnie, and he said the same thing.
Yeah, that's just insane. Well, if you like what you've heard and want more, make sure you subscribe, like, and leave reviews for us. It does help us to generate more listeners, and we don't monetize on any of it, but you can help us out with the algorithms and so forth by doing those 3 things. And if there's nothing else, go forth and love comics.
Woo.
No one's gonna do the woo.
I said woo. Woo.